Good afternoon, good morning ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 5 of the Daniel Ricciardo series. We're at Little Rissington, the second time we've been here in the series this year. Slightly different conditions, it has to be said. We were here in the baking heat earlier on in the calendar back in July. We're now here in, well, the sun's shining at the moment, but it is an overcast day due and potentially some rain this afternoon as well. We're here just outside of Cheltenham, old RAF airbase, wide open, fast flowing circuit here at Little Rissington. And earlier on this morning, I headed out to have a look at the challenges that the drivers face here at Little Rissington. Welcome to the Daniel Ricciardo series. We're here at round 5 at the historic Little Rissington circuit. The second time we've been here this season, and certainly a lot more things for the drivers to consider in terms of the weather this weekend. Let's go and have a look at the circuit. Rissington is renowned for the fact that it's a power circuit. It's quick, it's fast, it's bumpy, it's quite coarse. The curbs here are fairly aggressive, it has to be said. If you have a look at they call them the sausage curbs in Formula 1, very similar, big drop-offs between the curb, the top of the curb and the bottom. So drivers, will want to try and avoid these curbs whenever they can and try and keep it on the black stuff where possible, while still maintaining the apex, right on the inside of these fast corners. This is the first corner, they call it Paddock Bend here at Rissington. They come off a very, very fast right-hander. Up the start-finish straight, you probably see most of the overtaking in here, but it's quite high speed and drivers have to make sure they carry as much momentum as they possibly can on the way into the next couple of corners. We're here at turn 2, and for a circuit that looks really flat, we're on an old airfield as we said earlier, for a circuit that looks really flat, there is quite a lot of undulations here. At turn 2, the circuit actually drops away from you to the outside, and you can also see this morning these wet patches on the circuit. So at the moment there is a dry line, there's a dry racing line for the driver, so we expect the slick tyre. There is some rain forecast, and this just gives you an indication of how the circuit changes. Wet line on here, dry line here, and you can see the change in the colours. So drivers will want to stay on the racing line where possible, but when they are having to come off the line to overtake, could cause them some problems in terms of the amount of grip that they get. And on the exit of turn 2, drivers are in a real hurry to get the car back over onto the right-hand side of the circuit. Now that's a tough thing to do at high speed, and with the camber sloping away from the drivers as well, makes it really tough. So they have to manage their speed on the way through turn 2, get the car right back over onto the right-hand side and into the right racing line, ready for the loop. And this is the loop, long left-hander. It seems to go on for ages, this corner. You're holding on with that steering all the way through the corner. You're trying to just catch the apex on the exit there and try not to roll too wide as you swing back over onto the left-hand side to get the best possible angle into turn 4. You can see the marshals this morning are out, just clearing those little bits of debris, just making sure there's no stones or rocks or anything in the way for the drivers, and preparing the circuit for race day today. And this is Top Bend, the furthest part away from the paddock of the circuit. Another long right-hander, and there is an opportunity to overtake here for the drivers that can hang on to the inside line as they come off the loop and just effectively drive up the inside. But this is another fast sort of mid-range corner for the drivers. Two things to consider here. One is how aggressive this curb is on the inside. It goes from being quite a balanced curb here to having these big drops in it here. It becomes a real sausage curb effectively halfway around the corner. So the drivers that do catch this inside curb are in for a bumpy ride. The other aspect here is if you look really down, if we can try and get down onto the circuit here, you can see how it started to come away and crack. This is an old historic kart circuit. It's been here for years. And the surface is quite coarse, and it has just started to break up on the inside. So from a tyre wear perspective, this does run the risk of effectively just causing that little bit of extra tyre wear, especially if the weather's changeable today. If we go on to wet tyres in drying conditions, these little cracks in the circuit, there's some more here, they will chew the tyres. They will make tyre wear really critical for the drivers and something that they might have to manage. And drivers will want to get the best possible line, the best run, the most momentum out of top bend. Because if you look from here, it's quite a long way all the way down into the dogleg. There's a little right-handed kink, as you can see. But effectively, this is an opportunity to get right into the slipstream, to tuck right in behind your opposition and try and get the inside line into one of the harder braking zones here at Little Rissington. So the dogleg then, this is a hard left. You're coming off a really fast section of the circuit, down through that little right-handed kink, all the way down into here. The circuit slopes away from you as well, and it's a hard left. The reason it's a hard left is because you need to get the kart back onto the left-hand side for the right on the way out. So these drivers really cut this corner. There's a nice little reference point here, actually, a nice little triangle where the white line's been painted on. So you're effectively looking to put your left tyre, your left inside front tyre into this little triangle. That's your apex point, and then get as much of the steering on as you possibly can from a nice wide start to get you over onto this left hand side. The reason for that is if you end up over here on the right, you're making that corner significantly tighter than it needs to be. And the most important thing here is you're about to go through middle and bottom bend, and they're fast momentum-based corners which take you back onto the start of a new lap. So if you make a mess of this, it might be till the start-finish straight when you regather some of that pace, when you regather that speed, you build it back up again, you have to start another lap. So drivers really want to get as much momentum. Yes, it is an overtaking opportunity of sorts, but really this is about momentum, exit speed, through those fast bottom and middle bends and into a new lap. And it's worth just looking at some of these reference points. What drivers will do is they'll have little guides. I know Andy goes and does a track walk with the drivers on the Saturday of a race weekend, and they'll talk about reference points. They'll talk about you need to be here. And drivers, when you're sat low and you think how low these drivers are in terms of the kart, that they are looking all the time, having that awareness of where those reference points are. We spoke about that little triangle, those little white lines. There's one here as well. Just the faded white line is your exit point. That's the point where we want to get to. We're coming from wide onto the left, trying to hit this exit point, and ultimately the best way to drive quickly around a kart circuit like this is try and make corners into straight lines. So if you can get high on the exit, that effectively from there to here is a straight line. If you have to come all the way around this corner, it's obviously slower to do that than to set the kart up early for the way into the corner to make it as straight as possible. So bottom and middle bend, now in the dry, these are pretty much flat out. They are off camber. If you get really nice and low, you can see how they start low and actually start to rise. This is the lowest point of the circuit, and it will start to come up and climb ever so slightly back up to start finish. This is fast. I had an off here in 1999. I seized a 125 kart and ended up in that field somewhere all those years ago. So it just gives you an indication of how quick it can be. In the wet, and we are expecting some rain later today, this is treacherous, it's slippy, it's sloping away from you, it's then coming up the hill a little bit. It's lots of different cambers, lots of different things for the driver to consider as they come into here in the wet weather. In dry conditions, we'll be racing line nice and tight, letting the kart flow out onto the rumble strip on the exit. In the wet, expect drivers to be more over here, away from that racing line where the rubber is, trying to pick up some of those marbles, trying to pick up a little bit more grip with the wet tyre as they drive on and up into middle bend. So middle bend then, we're coming towards the end of the lap, and this is flat out again, so they'll come quickly through bottom bend here, they'll come up towards middle bend, and it just sort of fires them into the corner. It comes up the hill and in, they carry lots of momentum. It's a fairly straightforward corner for the drivers. They won't spend too much time worrying about the line through here. It's basically keep the throttle planted and hold on as it takes you up towards the outside of the corner. The job then is to get back onto the right hand side, for the elbow, the final stage of this Rissington circuit. So this is just about consistency, momentum, no mistakes through here, nice, neat and tidy. The other thing is just be aware of anything offline. You can see how the freshly cut grass here at Rissington's just started to come onto the exit of the circuit. It's still really wet here as well. Still really wet out here this morning, and it is cold, so we're not going to get much dry on here. It's cold, it's damp, we are expecting some rain. The drivers on the racing line, of course, they'll clean this up. They'll clean all these little dark patches up this morning. They'll get them a little bit better, a little bit drier with their slick tyres as they put sort of more energy and more carts go around. But this bit here, this could still be wet. Even if there was no rain, this could still be wet by 3 o'clock this afternoon. So anybody offline here into Middle Bend, they could find themselves in some trouble. So the final couple of corners here at Little Rissington start with the elbow, this 90 left, and drivers will come in. You can almost see the rubber and the racing line from on the circuit there. They'll want to come in nice and wide, carry as much speed as they possibly can do onto the inside of the circuit, let the kart roll, and then you can almost see the line there, can't you? They go out to the outside of the circuit, they then come back over to the left, and it's a flat out left, flat out right that takes them all the way up to the top of probably the best overtaking opportunity as well. There is a chance in here for some last lap dive, some last lap, get down the inside, try and make a move stick, but it is quite a quick corner, as all the corners here are at Little Rissington on a real powerful circuit, a real fast circuit. So there is a chance, but you need a great run off Middle Bend to get down the inside into the elbow and have that last drag race up towards the line. And that's it. That is a lap of Little Rissington. Lots to keep the drivers occupied, lots of concentration required here, because a little mistake usually hurts you for 3 or 4 corners until you can build that speed back up. We were here a few months ago in the blistering heat. This is a different proposition for the drivers. It's damp, it's really cold. There is rain threatened for this afternoon, and the track conditions could be changeable. Drivers, mechanics, parents, helpers, they're all going to have to find the right setup here for a different sort of challenge to what we had a few months ago. The championship is tight. We have 2 rounds left to go in this series. Let's see how our 3 classes get on in qualifying. Hooton Park. Ben Gartside didn't take part last time out at Wilton Mill. He's 4th in the championship. Dylan Reid 5th in the championship. As Elliot Stanley crosses the line to do the first flying lap of the session. So just the 8 of the DRS125s here with us this weekend. One notable absentee from this class is Dave Burns, usually our number 197. So it's congratulations to Dave Burns. That's why he's not here. Congratulations to him, his wife Alex, son Max on the safe arrival of baby Amelia. Congratulations from everybody here at the Daniel Ricciardo series, and we look forward to seeing Dave back in action as soon as possible. 10th in the championship so far, Dave Burns. So the first few laps, flying laps, meaning that Sam Faulkner is the fastest driver on circuit. When we were here for that earlier round 2, the winner that day was indeed Sam Faulkner. Second was Matthew Pearce. Third was Dylan Reid that day, the 3:17. So 10 minutes for these drivers to put in their best possible qualifying lap time, pick up a handful of championship points and give themselves the best possible position on the dummy grid for the first heat. So Faulkner, Stanley and Rigg. Just looking now as well, we've no Matthew Pearce here on the entry list this weekend. So Matthew Pearce will drop these, will have to drop this round's scores. Slightly lower entry, I assume, is due to the ongoing fuel issues that we have in the country at the moment. I know some people are struggling with fuel, and I know it was put out there to the drivers in terms of what they wanted to do about this weekend's races. But we are here, we are racing. And it'll still undoubtedly be very competitive indeed. There is Elliot Stanley going through the right-hand kink and then down. I wonder if we're just getting some little spots of rain at the moment. Just having a little look out of our window. There's a sun to the south of the circuit, but very, very overcast. Some really dark clouds over the central and northern parts of the circuit. So Elliot Stanley now comes through that final corner, heads up the start-finish straight and into turn 1. He's second fastest. He's only just around a couple of hundredths of a second slower than Sam Faulkner. Jack Rigg is third fastest. He's around about a tenth slower on that last lap. Firas Balbesi is fourth fastest. Just having a look at Jack Rigg in terms of where he is in the championship. Seventh in the series so far. His best result came here, sixth place in round 2. He was seventh at Wilton Mill last time out, giving away just around about 90 points between himself and Sam Faulkner, who leads the championship. He's certainly showing decent pace here in qualifying, number 3:16. So 8 drivers then. And certainly the top 7 of those all within 6/10 or so. So Faulkner, Stanley, Rigg, Balbesi. Mark Lawrence is 5th fastest. Oliver Owen is 6th fastest. Tom Snape is 7th fastest. And James McGing is 8th fastest of them all, the only rookie in the field. So just looking at Jack Rigg and Sam Faulkner and Elliot Stanley at the moment. So Elliot Stanley's trying to use Jack Rigg as a bit of a tour around here, trying to get himself dragged around this Rissington circuit. Temperature has undoubtedly dropped in the last few minutes, and there is some spots of rain, it looks, on the camera lens there as they go through the right-hander. They're not really struggling with grip, are they, at the moment? We're not seeing them really struggle for traction. Sam Faulkner, interestingly, went out, did 2 laps, came in. And I like that strategy. We'll talk to him about it later on, but he clearly went out there, posted a time that he thought would get the job done, and then has headed on into the paddock to put some, or save some wear on the tyres. So he will have at least probably 8 or 10 laps fresher tyres when it comes to the finals later on this afternoon. I also wonder if the drop in temperature affected that decision as well, whether they felt that the best time to be out on that circuit was in the first couple of laps, first couple of minutes of the session. And he's ducked in. There's a few that have done the same. Oliver Owens only completed 2 laps of the session, and Tom Snape and James McGing have both brought their session to a close as well. So there's only actually four drivers out there at the moment. Only 4 drivers circling
They're not going any faster, are they? So my view would be that they probably knock this on the head and save the tyres. We spoke about this, didn't we? Here, it was here last time that we spoke about the tactics of the qualifying session. So Sam Faulkner, Oliver Owen, Tom Snape all have concluded their session early. But for Faulkner, he's already done enough to be out at the front of the timesheet. Only just, mind. 3/10 or so. I wonder what the rationale behind Elliott Stanley just keeping circling. He's not going any faster. Hasn't gone any faster. He's on a 43.384. So they're good lap times, but they're not quite there yet. And of course, remember, once you abandon your flying laps, once you come into the pits, that is the end of your qualifying session. You can't rejoin at any point. So Faulkner has a little bit of a nervous wait here to ensure that Elliott Stanley doesn't go any faster than him. He's already through the loop and the dogleg is Elliott Stanley, and he's just about to come round and complete another lap. There's 2 minutes of the session left, so he'll probably get another couple of laps in as we look down to the 2:30 of Mark Lawrence and the 3:21 of Firaz Bilbezi. Just trying to see now. Oh, Stanley's gone in, has he? Yes, he has. So now we're down to 3 as Elliott Stanley abandons his session after 10 laps. Be an interesting conversation, won't it, when we head down later on to talk to these DRS125 drivers about why or what the tactic was and what the strategy was to the qualifying session. 10 laps for Elliott Stanley, just the 2 laps for Sam Faulkner. But 2 flying laps that were just about enough, or look like they're going to be just about enough, to get himself on pole position. As the rest of the group keeps circling. And just checking on the lap times here. Matt Lawrence just on a 43.8, so he's 2/10 slower than he has been. Firaz Bilbezi is lapping around 6/10 slower than he has been. So yeah, I don't really see the rationale behind this other than putting more wear into the tyres. Probably doing not really any use. They're getting more track time, which is great, of course, and more experience out there. But in terms of trying to go faster for the qualifying session, I wonder if they'll head in, or the checker flags come out now anyway. So these drivers will complete another lap, will they? No, they won't. They're all into the paddock. And that is the end of the DRS125 qualifying session. Sam Faulkner, 43.353, the fastest lap of the session. Second fastest, Elliott Stanley, 43.376. So just to show, not very little between the front two, and less than a 1/10 of a second back to third as well. Jack Rigg, third fastest, the 3:16. Then we've got a further 1/10 or so back to Firaz Bilbezi. Mark Lawrence, a further 1/10 back in 5th, and then a further 1/10 back from that, Oliver Owen in 6th place. So just 3/10 or so separating the top 5 or 6. Tom Snape in 7th and number 5, and James McGing, the 3:20 in 8th place. The DRS125s, their first heat just around 5 to 1 this afternoon, 12:55. Pre-final just before 3 o'clock, and the grand final just after 4 o'clock this afternoon. A little look at the weather, because there's, some very dark clouds around. Just back in to check on the forecast. We are expecting rain now, the forecast is saying. It's certainly got significantly darker around here, and now it's saying 80 and 90% of rain, chance between 12 and 1, which is just about where we are, isn't it? It's certainly imminent, it looks, at the moment. We're on the grid for the DRS125s, their first heat of the day. Quick weather check. Looks very dark over there. It has to be said, looking very dark over there, and that is generally where it's coming from. You can see the weather's coming over from that period. We are expecting some rain. Could be now, could be interesting. We'll see what the drivers think of that as well. I'm going to try and I'll grab Sam Faulkner first if we can. If I can interrupt him in just a moment. He's just having a chat with somebody else at the moment, so we'll In fact, we'll leave him and we'll go over to Elliot Stanley, because I'm intrigued about the qualifying, the strategy of qualifying. Elliot, just nick you for a minute. What was the rationale behind 10 laps? Do you think there was a bit more to come in qualifying?
It stopped raining about 8 laps in, so I thought I'd stay out for a couple more laps if it just completely dries out, but unfortunately for me it didn't.
You've got eight laps more on your tyres. I mean, tyre deg here is quite an abrasive circuit, isn't it? So is it a case of maybe trying to get yourself out front first and see what happens from there? It was a tactic that you used quite well at Wilton Mill.
I've always found that the degradation here isn't that bad, so I think we should be okay. He never does that many laps anyway, so it's going to be a case of just try and get either onto the back of him and follow him through, and then try and nick it at some point, or get in front of him early and try and control it from there. So
yeah, because not much in the times, is there really? It's fairly close at the moment.
It's very close at the moment, so hopefully it stays that way and keep up with him.
Wish you all the best. We'll nip over and just try and grab Sam Faulkner and just ask about the 2-lap quali. Sam, just very quickly, 2-lap quali, I quite like the 2-lap qualifying strategy. Is that something that you preempted, or you just think that's what we're going to get out of the tyres, we'll leave it at that?
It was a bit of that, and also I could see the rain starting to come down, and I thought, well, I'm not going to go much quicker, and even if we are, might lose a few places, because the time was okay, it wasn't brilliant, but luckily the rain stayed, and the carb wasn't brilliant, so you didn't have a lot of straight line speed. So
this could get interesting, couldn't it? Because it's looking fairly ominous at the moment, isn't it? Are you expecting a bit of rain now?
We're not sure. Problem is, with the weather apps don't seem to find Little Rissington as a place, so the closest we've got is Cheltenham, which isn't brilliant, but it could rain. Yesterday in the rain this track was really grippy, so it's not going to be too bad I think if it rains, but yeah, we'll see.
Good. We'll wish you all the best. We're just going to nip back as well, because the other driver that did a 2-lap qualifying was Tom Snape. He's here. We're just going to grab him very quickly. Tom, we've just been talking about the strategy of qualifying and the fact that you did a 2-lap qualifying as well. What was the rationale behind that?
Brakes weren't working.
Okay, yeah, so maybe not strategy, maybe more mechanical.
Yeah, it was mechanical. I was having problems. We didn't quite get the setup right as well, so yeah.
I suppose the benefit is that you've got a little bit less time in the tyres, although that might not matter at the moment, because it is looking pretty ominous out here at the moment. There's a lot of grey clouds around it. We've just been speaking about how it's almost got its own little microclimate around here, and it's very difficult to preempt the weather. I think we are going to get some rain at some point. Is that a good thing for you?
I don't know really, because I've not driven in the wet here, so we'll find out.
So a bit of an explorer if it does happen. You don't want it to happen on the dry tyres, I suppose.
No. Well, actually, I'm quite confident with slicks in the wet. So actually, it'll probably be quite a good thing for me.
And a little bit of work to do here. Obviously, a few to navigate through. Hopefully, you got a bit of improvement with the setup and the brakes work. But I suppose from here, it's just pick up as many places as you can.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah.
We wish you all the best, Tom, for the remainder of that. Just a few minutes to go, 4 or 5 minutes to go until the start of the DRS125s and their first heat of the day. Will it stay dry? That's the question we are expecting. As I said, I've said it all day, we haven't really had it yet, but you can just start to feel it in the air here, and these ominous grey clouds are starting to circle. We're back in a few moments with the latest on the weather and the DRS125's first heat of the day. So the driver's just about ready. In terms of the championship, 11 points separates Sam Faulkner and Matthew Pearce. And then a further, well, 28 points between Sam Faulkner and Elliott Stanley. They're the front two. Sam Faulkner on the inside of the front row. Elliott Stanley alongside him. There's 8 laps of difference between the tyres. We know that. Let's see how that pans out as we progress through this race weekend. Close in terms of time as well. I'm not expecting much difference here. We've seen in spells Faulkner be pretty untouchable. We've seen him be very, very quick at the start of races. So I'm pretty sure the strategy from Elliott Stanley is to hold on in these early stages. And also remember with Faulkner, he has the disadvantage because he missed round 1. If he does have any problems, anything mechanical, any problems with an incident out there, he has to count everything that happens from here because he has dropped 3 heats in the final from round 1 because he wasn't at Hooton Park. So there's Matthew Pearce as well. Didn't see him in the qualifying earlier on this morning, so he starts at the back of the field. The question whether he was here or not, he's certainly here. Second in the championship and has an advantage. I mean, it's only 11 points difference between himself and the championship leader, but he has a little buffer where he can drop heats. He can drop his 3 worst heats and his worst final. I mean, his worst final is a 4th place finish at Hooton Park. So Matthew Pearce is still very much in this championship race. He is starting from the back of this grid though. We'll have a chat with him before the pre-final, just see how he sees the championship panning out at the moment. 2 formation laps for these DRS125 drivers. These are our oldest, our senior drivers, if you like. Smaller grid this weekend. Some drivers unavailable. We obviously know that Dave Burns isn't here because there's a young Burns being born. Again, just to echo our congratulations from everyone here at the Daniel Ricciardo series to Dave and his wife Alex. Here are the drivers that are here though. Faulkner, who's got the jump, surely that's not going to go, is it? Faulkner got a hell of a jump off the start. He was miles ahead of everybody else as they went through the start-finish line. But they have allowed the start to continue, and Faulkner is looking to take full advantage here. He's into the first couple of corners with a nice little advantage over Elliott Stanley. And we talked about this, didn't we? We talked about how important it was to probably try not to let him get away. There's a big gap here. So he hits the gas just around about now. He's accelerated off there, and everybody else just hasn't caught up with him, have they? Everyone else just hasn't managed to... Nobody else got the memo on the start. Faulkner it is who has the advantage. Now, what can Elliott Stanley do here? He really needs to close this gap as quickly as he possibly can do to try and get on terms with Sam Faulkner. Jack Rigg is 3rd, Matt Lawrence is 4th, Tom Snape, and then Matthew Pearce. So keeping an eye on Snape and Pearce. 5th and 2nd in last year's championship. It's not a good start for Firas Bill Basie either. JJ McGing is at the back of this field. So Balbesi, who qualified fairly well in 4th place, currently finding himself all the way down in 8th. Here are the front 2, or the front 3, because there's a fairly equal distance between Faulkner and Stanley, as there is between Stanley and Rigg. Over start finish, the gap is 0.8 of a second, and a fastest lap of the race so far for Faulkner. So Faulkner's trying to turn the screw here, trying to break the resolve of Elliott Stanley. 42.8 for Faulkner, 43 flat for Stanley. What's the likes of Matthew Pearce doing lap time wise? 43.7 for him, so he's nearly a second off the pace at the moment in 5th place. But he is trying to find a way past Mark Lawrence at the moment. I think he has found a way past Mark Lawrence as well, up into 4th place. Let's see what Matthew Pearce can do with some clear air. When we came here for round 2, Matthew Pearce finished second. He was second in every heat and second in the final to Sam Faulkner that weekend. So into the left-hander of the dogleg goes our race leader. The gap between them was, well, it was just around a second last time out, and Faulkner had done another fastest lap, a 42.7 for him, but Elliott Stanley had gone quicker himself. I'm interested to see the pace of Matthew Pearce now that he's got some clear air. He's got some clear air, but he's also got the 3.18 of Oliver Owen just tucked up behind him. Here is Faulkner. 42.7 last time round, extends the advantage again to 1.3 seconds, and Elliott Stanley not minding to have the answers at the moment. In fact, Elliott Stanley might have to be more concerned about Jack Rigg, because Jack Rigg has suddenly managed to close this gap. We've got under investigation for the 3.18, as we see the start again, the 3.18 of Oliver Owen under investigation. Is that for something here? Couldn't see much doing there. So Faulkner, Stanley and Rigg 1, 2 and 3. Matthew Pearce is 4th. Oliver Owen is 5th. Right, what did Pearce do last time round? He did a 43.5. It's still sort of 7, 8 tenths slower than Faulkner is at the front of the field. Faulkner's consistently lapping in the 42.7s at the moment. Although Elliott Stanley has done a one-off lap which was comparable, consistently he's not managed to match the pace of Sam Faulkner. Up towards the elbow comes Faulkner. These races 8 minutes and we are exactly halfway through. 8 minutes plus that one final lap. So Faulkner is coming up to top bend now. It's so smooth and so calm and consistent. He's a fairly laid back character anyway, Sam Faulkner, but he certainly drives that way, doesn't he? He's very, very smooth, very articulate in his driving style, very compact, neat and tidy, and certainly does the job. There is Elliott Stanley. Goes through the middle bend and heads up towards the elbow in second place. A little bit of understeer for Elliott there as he went through the left-hander. He turned and then had to give it a little bit more of a steering input just to make sure the car went into the corner the way he wanted it to. But he is under a little bit of pressure at the moment, Elliott Stanley, from Jack Rigg, who's managed to close this gap down to about 2 kart lengths between second and third. There's a huge gap back then to Oliver Owen, and Tom Snape has got ahead of Matthew Pearce. So this Pearce, who made lots of gains in the first couple of laps, now finds himself a little bit further down the field. He needs to get as many of these championship points on the board as he can. Second in the championship for Matthew Pearce. Well, the man he's trying to chase is going to take maximum points unless something goes awry in the next 2 minutes or so. Sam Faulkner's got a very comfortable 2.2 second advantage at the front of this field. The battle is more for second place between Elliott Stanley and Jack Rigg. No changes from 5th downwards. Tom Snape is still 5th, Matthew Pearce is still 6th, and then Mark Lawrence is 7th, and Firas Bilbezi is 8th, and JJ McGing is in 9th place. The only rookie driver that we have in the field for these DRS125s. Great to see some comments. We've got a comment from Dave Burns on YouTube and on Facebook, giving his best wishes to Matt Pearce. Well, Matt's not quite doing it at the moment, Dave, but there's plenty of time for him in the remainder of the day to get as many championship points as we can. He's currently down in 6th place, the number 2. Lapping around, well, around 7 tenths slower than Faulkner, 42.8 for him last time round. Fastest lap of the race is a 42.7. So Elliot Stanley and Jack Rigg have managed to do 42.8s. They've managed to be comparable in their lap times to Faulkner, but just not consistently enough. They're both lapping now 43 flat. They're giving 2/10 away per lap. Here is that battle for second place then. Stanley and Rigg. The 3:16 of Jack Rigg. In terms of the championship, down in 7th place. But good drives like this will do him no harm. He knows that Ben Gartside and Dylan Reid aren't here this weekend, so he's probably going to overtake them in the championship. Here is your race leader. He's going to have 2 laps to go. The time has just ticked away, so when he comes back round this time, you'll see the last lap board as we see JJ McGing just come through to complete another lap. Around 7 seconds covers the field. So Jack Rigg on his fastest sector 1 of the race so far, but the gap is still around about 2/10 between himself and Stanley. He's going to need to do something very, very good in the closing stages here to get himself on terms. Over start-finish he goes as the leaders begin their final lap. Oliver Owen a distant 4th and Tom Snape a lonely 5th, and then Pierce, who's got Mark Lawrence within maybe 4 or 5 kart lengths, but not under any real pressure or real threat just yet. Faulkner for the final time then is through the last couple of corners. It's another great sector 2 from Jack Rigg. He's not quite close enough, is he? He's still 2 kart lengths or so between them. Closes up in the top section and just loses out a little bit as they go through the dog leg. It's going to be Faulkner though. Lights to flag, did his hard work in the opening stage. He's got the best of the starts, and then Elliot Stanley and Jack Rigg come home 2nd and 3rd. 4th for Oliver Owen, Tom Snape in 5th, Matthew Pierce in 6th, Mark Lawrence and 3rd, Bill Basie come home 7th and 8th. James McGing is about to complete this race in 9th place. So the first heat of the day for the DRS125s is complete. And in a few moments time, 12:20 we are due with the DRS100s. We're going to be down the grid talking qualifying and talking this first heat of the day. We'll be back with you in just a few moments time. So the pre-final for the DRS125s, our senior class, is just on grid at the moment. Weather is good. We've still got the breeze, of course, but the sunshine is out. I don't think we're anything expected for rain-wise for at least an hour, so hopefully we can certainly get through our pre-finals. I'm going to try and jump onto the outside of the 3rd row and speak to Matthew Pierce if I possibly can do. He's deep in conversation with someone at the moment, but I'm going to go around the back and see if I can just grab him for a moment. If I can interrupt, sorry Matthew, if I can just interrupt you for a moment. Not the date you would have hoped for, I'm sure. What was the situation with qualifying?
Carb issue basically. So yeah, we had a severe carb problem, but managed to sort it out. But unfortunately, we only sorted it out after qualifying. So missed the whole session, couldn't get out, had to start at the back. So and the last session just then, or the last race was a bit rubbish because we overcooked the tyres. So got the tyre pressures completely wrong. So was okay to begin with, and then by lap 3 I was just struggling to hold on, just dropping away. So
just talk to me about the championship, because you are in a decent position here, because I suppose the issue that Sam Faulkner's got is that he's dropped all of his scores. He's dropped a round effectively, so you've almost got to stick in there, haven't you, get as many points as you can, and you know that you would be the benefactor if anything was to happen down the line.
Yeah, I mean, coming into it, we're all really relatively close. So Sam was only a few points ahead of me, Elliot's only a few points behind me, so the 3 of us were there or thereabouts. So today hasn't been the best for that from a championship point of view, but you know, anything can happen. Yeah. Elliot is quick, they looked pretty decent in the first race, so if Elliot can make a move and start fighting, then I need that, and these other drivers need that for have a chance to catch up, because otherwise, just like the first race, it spreads out, you can't have a pop.
That is the key, isn't it? Almost get ahead of Sam and make him work a little bit harder, and bring the rest of you all a little bit closer together. I suppose makes it, especially for you. That's in this position from the outside of the third row. That's probably the perfect scenario. Is it just to get you back in the mix of the rest of them?
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping, obviously, with the changes that we've done now, that it'll be a bit more competitive and we can hang on to the back of these guys and start to make our way through, really. So.
All the best.
Cheers.
So the championship's still very much alive here, although Sam Faulkner's been dominant in the races that we've seen so far. Because he's dropped that full round by not attending one of the meetings, he can't afford to drop in the race. He has a mechanical problem, he has to count that score. So yes, the tactics here are going to be very interesting. We expect, you know, likes of Elliot Stanley to try and get the jump on that first couple of corners and bring the likes of Matthew Pearce and Tom Snate from the third row and the drivers ahead of them, the likes of Ollie Owen, back into this as well. So it could be a really interesting race, but probably dictated by the first couple of corners. The DRS125s for their pre-final is coming up in just a moment. So the pre-final for the DRS 125s is on circuit. completing a couple of formation laps for these drivers. And interestingly, he spoke to Matthew Pearce and we've got a problem there for Jack Rigg. So Jack Rigg, from the inside of the second row, has got a problem. Should we get it restarted now with a puff of smoke? He's back on his way, but will that be something that affects him further down the line? We'll have to keep an eye on that. He was in a great position, wasn't he? He certainly looked one of the quickest in the first heat. So the tactics, spoke to Matthew Pearce about the tactics here. And we've spoken about this a couple of times, haven't we? Wilton Mill, we said the same. They're going to go around again for another formation lap. We spoke about the importance of, with Sam Faulkner's pace, have you got to try and get the jump on him early? Have you got to try and be alive at the start of the race? And Faulkner certainly got the jump in the heat. Let's see if the likes of Elliot Stanley and Jack Rigg, who you've just seen, who's now rejoined, or just about to rejoin the pack, can they affect Sam Faulkner in the early stages of this race? So they slow themselves down just to come under the starters' orders. Clerk of the course is on the start-finish line, just making sure they're all where they should be. They're all lined up in the way that he expects them to be. So our 10 DRS125 drivers are off and racing. And it is Faulkner who gets the best of the starts. Now, can Elliot Stanley find a way through? Can he force the issue? If he runs wide, that might be an opportunity that for Faulkner, because Stanley ran wide through the left-hander of the loop. It's just given Faulkner already 2 or 3 car lengths advantage over the rest of the field. They go into the dogleg for the first time, just struggling for a little bit of grip out. There's contact further back as well, involving the 5 of Tom Snape. They squabble over 6th, 7th and 8th at the moment. But there is the gap already for Sam Faulkner. And the emphasis on the starts is so important when you've got a driver who has the ability to cruise away at the front. Here is the incident involving Snape and I think Jack Rigg down the inside. Oh, he loses it, just loses it on the way in. Gets a nudge from Jack Rigg for his troubles. Not much Jack Rigg could really do about it. Through the dogleg once more. Let's keep an eye on this gap between the front two, because that's the key at the moment. 0.7 of a second on lap 1. Sam Faulkner pulled out over Elliot Stanley. Is there any response from the number 8? And any response from Oliver Owen, who's doing a good job up there in 3rd place at the moment. Pearce a little bit further back in 4th, said that they got the tyre pressures wrong in the first heat. That led to them not being able to effectively go the distance in terms of pace. So into the dogleg goes the 2.83, the championship leader, Sam Faulkner. Heads down towards bottom bend and then he'll sweep up the hill slightly to the right-hander of middle bend and then bring the car over to the right-hand side for the right line into the elbow. The gap was 1.1 seconds last time round. What have we got this time? We've got 1.4 seconds. He's cruising away here. No answer for the pace of Sam Faulkner from Elliot Stanley or Oliver Owen or Matthew Pearce for that matter. 42.8 for Faulkner. Everybody else lapping in the 43s. So at the moment, they cannot match this man at the front of this DRS125 field. The championship's still very much alive. We've said it a few times now. Because Faulkner missed the first round of the championship, he has dropped those scores. He cannot afford any more dropped scores. He cannot afford a non-finish, because that will all go towards his total. And the championship's still quite tight. There's only 11 points between Pearce and Faulkner on drop scores. So we've got an under investigation for Snape as well. Not sure really if that is for the first lap incident. Not sure as much Tom Snape could have done. He just lost control as he went down into the dogleg for the first time. Unless something else has happened when he's been circling round in 5th place, the number 5. Another fastest lap from Faulkner last time round, 42.7 for Sam Faulkner. What's he got in his locker this time? 5 laps complete, 42.9, so he drops off a little bit. Stanley does his personal best, but it's still not faster than Sam Faulkner has been. So Faulkner, Stanley and Owen, then Pearce. Just see if Matthew Pearce is getting a little bit closer to Oliver Owen. I think he has done on the last lap. If anything, Owen's getting slightly closer to Elliot Stanley. Tom Snape is 5th. Jack Rigg recovered, not quite showing the pace that he had in the heat either. Jack Rigg, he hasn't got track position like he had then. As we see the 3-2-1 of Firas Bilbesi just trying to attack Mark Lawrence. That's for 7th and 8th place. Jack Rigg's ahead of them. And JJ McGing is last of all the runners at the moment in 9th. Here is that battle for 7th and 8th. Bilbesi and Lawrence. Mark Lawrence, who was the pole man, wasn't he, in the rain-swept qualifying at Wilton Mill. Used all his experience to get himself on the front row. Now he's trying to use all his experience to keep behind the 3-2-1 cart of Firas Bilbesi. No such problems, no such pressure on our race leader. 42.7 for Faulkner again. Stanley 43 flat, so he lost another 3/10. The gap's 2.6 seconds. That's an awful long way in a kart race, an awful long way around this Rissington circuit. He's doing a stellar job, isn't he, Sam Faulkner? Here is the battle for 2nd place. He's a little bit closer, isn't he, Oliver Owen? These drivers have 8 minutes plus a lap in this pre-final. We've already had 5.5 of those minutes, so we're well into 2/3 race distance. Just keeping an eye on the pace of Matthew Pearce as well, 43.3, so he's a good half a second slower than Faulkner. Nobody's been below 43 seconds other than Sam Faulkner, 42.7. So maybe back to the drawing board for some of these guys. The grand final, their only way has got to be to try and get the jump on Faulkner early on. They've got to try and find a way of smothering him in the first couple of corners. They've got to make a stronger start than they are doing, because all they're doing is allowing him to cruise away at the front of this field. They've got to make him work harder, Sam Faulkner. They've got to attack him in the first couple of corners, the first lap. Try and get the jump on the start. Not really sure why they haven't just tried to play a little bit of cat and mouse from the outside of the front row, or from 3rd even. Try and be a little bit more aggressive on that, into that first corner. Take nothing away from Faulkner. He's kept them all at bay so far. Put in a couple of really consistent early laps to ultimately get the job done early doors here. Here is the battle then for 2nd and 3rd. It's Elliot Stanley and Oliver Owen, number 8 and number 318, down towards start-finish line once more. They've got through. They will have, well, they're probably going to get another 2 laps after this one. So they go through the left and then swing right to top bend. Long right-hander, opens up on the exit. They drop down through this little kink in the road and then to the left-hander of the dog leg. Sweeps left again to go right down the hill towards bottom bend. This undulating, lots of different little cambers here. It looks flat, doesn't it, from the camera angles? It looks like just a fairly flat circuit, not the sort of thing you see at Wilton Mill or Rowra or them sort of tracks where they have huge undulations. This looks flat, but I can assure you there is lots of little camber changes, lots of little challenges for the drivers. It's 2 laps to go here. Well, a lap and a half now for our race leader. So Faulkner with a 3.7 second advantage, a huge gap. He's consistently lapping around half a second quicker than everybody else out there. First, Bill Basil's just put in a really good lap. A 43 flat for him is his fastest lap of the race so far. It's actually quicker than everybody else other than Sam Faulkner. So although Bill Basil doesn't have track position, now he's cleared Mark Lawrence, putting in some really consistently quick lap times. So here is Faulkner on his final lap. Been very, very straightforward for him, it has to be said. He can coast around from here. The yellow helmet, distinctive white and red overalls. Down into the right-hander, and he's come to the elbow for the final time. Elliot Stanley has just extended away from Oliver Owen. There's no real pressure on him, and then Matthew Pearce has just done his fastest lap of the race so far as well, a 43 flat, but there's going to be no mistake in the winner. Sam Faulkner then completes pretty much a clean sweep so far today. Second place is Elliot Stanley. Oliver Owen is third, Matthew Pearce is fourth, Jack Rigg is fifth, Tom Snape is sixth, Ferris Bill Basie is 7th, and Jack Lawrence in 8th, and I think JJ McGee is just about to come through now and complete our DRS125 pre-final. Next up, the DRS 100s. Dry conditions for them, and they are due off in around about 15 minutes. We'll be down the grid in just a few moments' time. Our second grand final is on the grid and just about ready to go. Our senior drivers, the DRS 125. So Sam Faulkner, clean sweep so far this weekend. What can the drivers around him do to prevent that? Let's head over. We're going to try and grab Oliver Owen, the 318. He's just on the far side here. We'll see if we can interrupt his discussion with Sam Faulkner. Oliver, can we just borrow you for a second, Ollie? Is that all right? Good pace today. Been there or thereabouts. One of you has got to attack, haven't you, in the first couple of corners?
Yeah, we've just got to go for it and see what happens. Hopefully I can get in and get behind Sam to get my head down and go for it and hopefully get a podium.
And what would be the strategy? Because obviously Sam's disappeared in the distance because he's not had that big challenge in the first couple of corners. If you can get yourself on the back bumper, are you looking sort of through 3, 4, even down into the dogleg into 5 to have a move for the lead and make him work a bit harder for his points?
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens because the first corner is always a bit of a well, you see what happens. Sometimes people spin out, some people crash, but we'll have to see. So yeah, see if Sam can hold the lead for the whole time.
Is that so? The plan is podium. Anything else as a bonus?
Yes, exactly that. Yeah, go for the podium, and if we can get up and go for a race win, would be good.
Great stuff. All the best for the grand final. We'll see who else is around. So who have we got here? Some of them are they're all a very friendly bunch, these DRS 125 drivers, all having a good chat and with each other and all friendly until they put the visor down, and then it's a different proposition. Let's try and have a look at let's go to Mark Lawrence. We'll go a little bit further back and make your life a little bit harder at the back of the field. He's just about to put his helmet on. We'll grab him just before he does. Mark, outside of row 4, what can we do from here?
Hang on. Anything else? Yeah. No, I'll take advantage of any carnage that happens. But apart from that, these guys are quick. It's going to be tough. But yeah, I'll do my best.
Good. Enjoy yourself. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Let's see who else we can find. I've got to speak to Jack Rigg. We wanted to speak to Jack earlier on, so we'll just grab Jack. I'll come round the other side to you, Jack, if that's all right. Jack, we've just been talking about the fact that Sam's had it all his own way. He gets out front and sort of disappears. Somebody's got to put an attack on, haven't they, in the first couple of corners? Can that be you?
Well, it's always the aim. As long as we can get a good start and try push him along in the first 2 corners, we might be able to make a jump, but we never know.
Because you've shown the pace, haven't you? You've shown the pace to be there. I suppose it's just consistent pace, isn't it, that's probably let a couple of drivers down in them first couple of laps where he sort of skipped off into the distance. So is it, try and get the thing to come on a little bit quicker, try and make an attack and see where we go from there?
Yeah, well, we had a bit of an unfortunate start at the last race, so hopefully we don't have the same as we did in the pre-final, and we can try and give him a bit more pressure on the first couple of laps, and maybe we'll be somewhere near.
Great stuff. Wish you all the best for the grand final. I just want to try and grab Elliot Stanley. He's over there talking to Matthew Pearce. We'll go and interrupt him because we can. He's we've still got 4 or 5 minutes. I'll just interrupt these conversations if that's all right. We were just saying that at some point somebody's got to go and attack, haven't they? And my view is that's got to be you from the outside of the front row.
I got to try.
And it's easier said than done, I understand that, but surely I'm not expecting you to give us your strategy, but from my seat it's got to be, we've got to put a move on early to try and make him work.
Yeah, I got to try and get in front of him and then defend for the rest of the race because he is so quick. It's just, at the moment, setup's not really there. Struggled yesterday, it was wet all day, so it's hard to get a decent kind of idea of what today's going to be like, so I think we've done all right.
And you say hang on, but once you're in front, there's all sort of things that can go on behind, isn't there? So I've been there. I know what you're thinking. I know your plan, and it would be nice. Listen, I'm sure Sam's thinking the exact opposite, but you know, from a spectacle perspective, we want a good race, don't we? And it'd be nice to see a move put on early.
If I can get in front of him, that'll be a good race.
Trying to encourage him along here.
I'm going.
Yeah, good. All the best, and all the best to all the DRS125 drivers. Could be an interesting start, this. We said it for the pre-final. Whoever maybe gets in that first corner first, or certainly gets around the first lap first, probably has the best possible chance here. Let's see how things develop. The DRS125 main final is on its way. So they're on circuit then, the DRS125s. And a little preview there, we talked about what could likely happen here. So let's think about what we know. We know that Sam Faulkner is probably the quickest, undoubtedly the quickest. He's got 2 race wins today under his belt, fastest in qualifying. But we also know that the other drivers, certainly the 2 or 3 around him on the grid, have comparable lap times at their best. We know that. We know he hasn't been challenged really in the first couple of corners, and he's always made good starts. So the challenge to the likes of Elliot Stanley and to the other drivers, certainly the 2 drivers on row 2, Jack Rigg and Oliver Owen, try and put some real pressure on early on. Not to give too much away here, but if I was sat in Elliott Stanley, I don't mind saying this, if I was sat in Elliott Stanley's seat, I'd be looking to try and jump the first start, because at worst case, they would put a green and yellow chevron flag out, and we'd go around again, and I'd have to behave myself the second time. At best case, you're in the lead of the race, and anything can happen from there. Now let's see if that is the case. Faulkner on the inside, Stanley on the outside. He hasn't got the jump, has he? No. Faulkner into the first corner first. Now the emphasis that now then is on Jack Rigg. Jack Rigg up into second. There's already a cart length between them, isn't there? Faulkner is so good at hooking these up in the first couple of corners. He's so good at getting grip instantly from the tyres. He's so good at scampering away, and the poor drivers behind who are all scrapping over second, third and fourth at the moment. They're probably thinking, what do we have to do to get on terms with him in the first couple of laps? And this will be where they get frustrated, because lap 3, 4 and 5, I pretty much bet that they'll all do comparative lap times. Now that might be Faulkner just backing this off a little bit and looking after the tyres, but everything that the drivers behind Sam Faulkner didn't want has happened. He got the jump on the start. He's already got a 1.5 advantage. It's nearly 10 kart lengths between himself and Elliott Stanley in second place. Rigg is third. Good start from Tom Snape up into fourth. Oliver Owen drops one for fifth. He's got some work to do for his podium today. Matthew Pearce is in sixth place, but the lead is already... you almost feel like it's already sewn up, this DRS125 Grand Final, because Faulkner's so good at hooking that car up. He's so good at getting the jump through the lights, so good, so concentrated on his starts, and he has cruised away in the early stages of this race. It's an absolute masterclass in how to win a race in the first couple of corners. Sam Faulkner has done it perfectly, and he's put another 0.3 of a second into this lap time. He's so fast in the opening stages of this race. Stanley is in second, Rigg is in third, then Snape and Pearce and Owen and Bill Basie and Lawrence is in eighth. JJ McGing is in ninth. What must Elliott Stanley be thinking? So tough. I mean, look to the championship as well. So the championship at the moment is led by Sam Faulkner, but he is in a precarious position, and the precarious position is the fact that he's dropped a full round's worth of scores, so he can't afford to drop any more. He had a DNF or he had a low finish at Clay Pigeon, but other than that, he's been pretty faultless, it has to be said. And today, he's going to rack up another, if he continues like this, he's going to rack up another clean sheet of points. He's going to take maximum points from the day. So it's going to take something, and it's not over. And this is why the DRS125 Championship isn't over, because he can't afford to have a DNF or an off or something like that. And whilst you've still got full bet to come, absolutely anything can happen. Faulkner then. Gap is up again to 2.4 seconds. He's cruising away at the moment. 42.6, 0.2 quicker than Elliott Stanley. It looks like the battle then is for second and third, fourth, fifth and sixth. Matthew Pearce is up into fourth now. Tom Snape is down to fifth. Oliver Owen drops another place down to sixth, and then Bill Basie. Bill Basie had good pace, didn't he, in the pre-final? Not really managed to hook it up as yet in the main final. Faulkner, and he will be very, very comfortable sat in that seat at the moment. He'll know exactly where everybody else is. What drivers tend to do is use reference points, so as he goes round this corner now, he can look across the circuit instead of looking behind him and having to twist his head completely and potentially lose concentration. You just look at where drivers are in relation to you on every single lap, and if they drop further and further back from that marker, you know you are putting distance between yourself and the driver behind. In the same vein, if they are getting closer and closer, you know the pressure is starting to come. There's a couple of good chances to do it here, certainly through the loop. You can just look out onto the other side of the circuit, just a glance out of the side of your visor. So Faulkner then, Stanley, Rigg, Pearce, Snape, Owen, Bill Basie, Lawrence. They're the top 8, and then JJ McGing is just coming round now to complete his lap. They've completed 6 laps. McGing, the only rookie of the field. So then, into the left-hander of the dogleg come this battle for 4th, 5th and 6th, with Pierce, Snape and Owen still very much in it, aren't they? They've got a little bit of distance to cover if they want to close in on the battle for 2nd place between Stanley and Rigg. And Faulkner, who leads, the gap is 3.4 seconds. At this rate, he's going to be 8 or 10 seconds down the road by the end. It's been an absolute masterclass. So even though I said that I expected the pace of Elliot Stanley and Jack Rigg and Matthew Pearce to be close to Faulkner, he's blown them away, hasn't he, in this final? Absolutely blown them away. He's lapping consistently 2 or 3 tenths of a second quicker than the rest of the field. He's already on his way up to the dogleg. Look at this battle between Oliver Owen and Tom Snape. Owen looking for a way through and into that 5th place. He wanted a podium. Still some work to do to get one. Through the left-hander then of the loop and up this short little hill towards Top Bend. It drifts away from them, opens up, and they head down the back straight into the dogleg. And if anything, Snape's just come back a little bit at Matthew Pearce in the last lap or so. Just trying to avoid the attack from Oliver Owen with an attack of his own on the number 2, last year's vice champion and 2nd in the championship at the moment. But he will know, will Matthew Pearce, that Sam Faulkner is hurting him in terms of championship points at the moment. He'll be taking another handful. So any places that Matthew Pearce can make up and cut that deficit down, he'll need to do. The 3 of them absolutely together for 4th, 5th and 6th. Just have a look at Bill Basie behind this as well. Not a million miles off the pace, is he? Then a further gap back to Mark Lawrence, who is 8th. So here is Faulkner. Different kind of circuit we go to from here as well. We go to Fulbeck, where it's long straights and tight corners, lots of little bus-stop chicanes, a lovely loop at the top end of the circuit, and a little complex stadium section. Another really historic kart circuit. We're there in 3 weeks' time. We're on the 30th and 31st of October for the final round of this Daniel Ricciardo series. It's a circuit that always throws up good racing. It's a good challenge for drivers. Through the right-hander then comes the race leader. The rest of them are still in the elbow as they come through to complete another lap. They've done 11 laps with 4 minutes still of this grand final to go. And there's 4.5 seconds nearly between 1st and 2nd, Faulkner and Stanley. He's lapping 2-3 tenths quicker, Sam Faulkner, every lap on Elliot Stanley. Remember, we're live on YouTube and Facebook. Feel free to get involved by sending us your comments on those platforms. Lots of support for drivers being shown. And 12 laps now complete. So consistent, Faulkner as well. 42.657 last time round. That's against a 42.612, which is his fastest lap of the race. So he's lapping within a couple of hundredths of his own fastest time every single lap. Now, interestingly, just now Elliot Stanley's done his fastest lap, 42.6. So he has got the pace that Sam Faulkner's got, but as we said on the grid, they haven't got it consistently. They haven't got it quickly enough out of the blocks in the same way that Sam Faulkner has. And Faulkner has 2.5 minutes to keep driving around this Rissington circuit. On his way to the checkered flag, the third time he's seen it. He was fastest in qualifying. He won the first heat. He won the pre-final. He is heading towards another win in the final, the grand final of the DRS125s here at round 5 of the Daniel Ricciardo series. Through the left-hander now comes the number 5 of Tom Snape. This battle still raging, isn't it, for 5th and 6th. Oliver Owen is behind him. Bill Basie just closing on to the back of these two as well. Still in the mix for a top 5 finish himself. So Tom Snape and Oliver Owen over start finish they go. Through the right-hander, swing down towards the left of the loop. And then into the farthest part of the circuit away from us here. Into the dogleg. Still no change. Very, very, very ragged is Snape under braking. Kicks the back end out. Tries to make the thing stop and turn left into the dogleg. But he's got Oliver Owen for very close company at the moment. This the battle for 5th and 6th. Over start finish. Here's the battle for 2nd and 3rd. Stanley and Rigg. And then Matthew Pearce is now a fairly lonely 4th place, isn't he? He's not quite got the pace to get on terms with Rigg and Stanley, and yet he's not under any real pressure from the likes of Snape or Oliver Owen, who are in their own battle at the moment for 5th and 6th. So a minute to go then. It looks like, I would imagine, Sam Faulkner will cross the time beam before. Oh no, he won't. So this will be 2 to go. So next time round, Faulkner will be on his final lap. Another 42.6 for Sam Faulkner. Absolute definition of consistency. But he's consistently quick, consistently quicker than everybody else. He has taken time and time and time out of Elliot Stanley, who now has just got to try and consolidate this 2nd place. Try and keep Jack Rigg behind him. 5.2 seconds Sam Faulkner has on everybody else. He could coast it from here, couldn't he? He's going to have a lap more to do after he comes through the elbow. He's probably not going to get to the back marker of JJ McGing. And he sees a board that says 1 lap to go. Round the right-hander. Let's do a lap with Sam Faulkner then. Through the left-hander then of the loop. He'll kick the cart to the left-hand side and flick the steering wheel. Little touch of opposite lock. He's very smooth, very controlled as he goes down the kink and into the left then the right of the dogleg. So smooth. Here's the battle for 2nd place. Probably just run out of corners has Jack Rigg. Not quite close enough at the moment, but here is the race leader who's about to be the race winner. He's through the elbow for the final time. He comes to the line and Sam Faulkner wins the 5th round of the Daniel Ricciardo series. 2nd place is Elliot Stanley, 3rd is Jack Rigg, 4th is going to be Matthew Pearce in his quest to try and put some pressure on the championship leader. Oliver Owen is 5th and Tom Snape just holds off the advances of Firaz Bill Basie into 7th place. And welcome back to round 5 of the Daniel Ricciardo series here at Little Rissington after a fantastic day's racing. We are here with the trophy presentation. We'll start with the DRS62s. In 3rd place, and our top rookie for the day is number 120, Oscar Walsh.
In second place, number 4, Jack Robinson. And today's winner, after an excellent recovery drive from a non-finish in the first heat, number 6, Harry Bartle. Ladies and gents, your DRS62 top 3. On to the DRS125s. In third place, number 316, Jack Rigg. In second place, number 8, Elliot Stanley. And a perfect set of results for today's winner, number 283, Sam Faulkner. The DRS125 top 3, ladies and gents. And on to what is rapidly becoming my favourite karting class of all time with the races that we are seeing, the DRS 100s, who've produced another fantastic grand final for us here today. In third place, number 138, Henry Foote. Another great recovery drive. In second place, number 2, Alicia Palmowski. And today's winner, number 144, Freddie Cox. And your best rookie for the DRS 100s, number 121 in 5th place for Charlie Ratford. Ladies and gents, your DRS 100 top 3. And that's all from us at a windswept round 5 here at Little Rissington. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time when we head to the grand finale, round 6 of the Daniel Ricciardo series at Fulbeck in Lincolnshire, where we will be crowning 3 brand new Daniel Ricciardo series champions. We'll see you there.